rooibos. You can only find that red bush rooibos in Cape Town, in the world.
Yeah. Veganism isn't as pretty as it seems, and you can help me debunk this as well. What's the cost of an average bull though?
There were 2 bull runs that went for about 4 million each.
So cattle is a very expensive commodity, especially if you're wanting to get married.
The Goonies.
It's the only currency we understand.
Everybody else was doing EFTs.
Everybody was doing EFTs, but you've got cows.
There are instances where up to 300 cattle have been sent.
If she has a BA or something, you can't add that.
No, but the thing
you can't.
Listen.
She did a BA in carpets and wallpaper.
I always say that you can literally turn around a rural area's economic situation by simply changing something as simple as just the bulls that they use in the area.
So does the 4 million rand cow taste different to the 16,000 rand cow? Will you ever know if you cut a piece of meat steak?
To be quite honest, no.
Yeah, give me all your attention. One time for the misfits. Through the doors open on the highway. I promise you don't want to miss this.
I'm sure they want cows.
Yeah, they want cows.
Oh, yeah.
They like...
We're speaking about Labola, cows costing, average
all of
costing.
it.
All of it. Break that all down.
That's fine, that's pretty
the
good.
Nguni.
Yeah.
The Load Shed podcast. Really great to have one of the most popular farmers I've ever met in my life. He goes by the name of Andile. Andile, welcome.
Thank you
to
very
the
much,
podcast
Josh.
today.
Thanks, gents. Appreciate it.
We really like having you on.
Yeah, what's up, bro? Andile's got a surname, bro. I wanted to see if you could...
Ngcobo.
Oh, there you go. Well done.
Ngcobo. Andile Ngcobo.
Well done. I just wanted to
Andile
just check
Ngcobo.
where we
Is
at.
that
Where we
correct?
at. Where
Was
we
that
at.
wrong?
Absolutely.
Why did you want to test me on his
Oh,
surname?
well, because, I mean, earlier on when we were trying to get the name, you were like...
I sent you his page last night.
Okay, yeah, I
and
got
you were,
it.
and
I
you
got
just
it.
mized.
I got it.
And then Dane was like, 50,000 followers.
boom, Instagram. Yeah.
So it must be stressful having like that many followers, like watching you constantly. Like, do you make sure that you post much of your private life on your account, or do you keep it low key and you just post career? Like, I'm a farmer, this is what I do.
To be quite honest, I feel as though the only reason why I gained so much traction is because I was very strict as to what I put out there on my page. And the reason why that came about also is because I didn't have anything cool in my personal life that I felt I could put out there every day of my life.
Yeah,
so,
I'm with you.
I just started posting a lot of what I do, you know, and I think because at the time, I also think that it's a situation thing, you know. During that time, it was very unusual for people of our generation to look at agriculture as a career, you know. And so it was more, I think now that I look back, it was more of a duty or a chore in a way, because I mean, a lot of people, especially black people, do come from farming backgrounds. But the problem is, because it's a generational thing for them as well, it always comes across as more of a duty that they feel they have to, you know, take upon, you know, farming. So they then move away from that kind of thing, you know. And now when you have someone who was born out of that kind of thing, wanting to come into that kind of thing and portraying it differently in a more modern world, then I think that's where the attraction came through from the followers.
So let's start with, what is it you actually do?
Okay.
What do you do, and how did you end up there?
Yeah.
I'm also starting to see the benefits of these kind of podcasts being important, because when I look back
Yeah.
and I listen to what I've said before and what I'm about to say now, I realize that I don't think that in any career one can actually stay stagnant doing one thing and being known for being good at one thing. You know, as you're learning and as you're progressing, so your outlook on the career changes and you start to find other like more niche type of either products to provide or services to provide. So initially, I was a farm manager. You know, I think from my very first job was an assistant farm manager, in fact. And then I grew to being a junior manager, then a senior manager. And then I also was more focused on crop production. So I was, you know, planting cabbages, spinach, and people just knew me from pictures of cabbages and spinach. They still ask me till this day, how's the cabbage going? How's the spinach going? You know? So, and then eventually ventured into livestock farming, cattle farming. And even then, not that I breed cattle, but obviously started out with like trading cattle and that kind of stuff. So you buy in, mark up, sell out, you know, and then eventually you buy cattle and you realize you've attached to one, and then that one happens to be a female. Then you want to get that one more, and then you end up getting a bull, and then you end up actually having offspring, and then so that grows as well. And then, but I think the biggest aspect of my career now that has been the one that I think that's going to sustain me for quite some time is farm development consulting.
Okay.
Because after having gained so much traction in the industry, after all the followers, after all the questions that I get, on social media, so I realized how many people have now realized that actually we want to get into something like this. And so a lot of them might have personal funding that they can invest in a project like this, but don't want to make the mistakes over the next 10 years when they can just get guidance consistently. And then that's where I come in.
Like a mentor to you.
Like a mentor. But I mean, from a consulting perspective, everything is billable. Your time, the calls, everything is just, is on bill time.
Okay, step one. How easy is it to start a farm?
Because now you've got to find the land.
Yeah, like take us through that process.
What's the process? Like, here's 10 million, go.
Yeah.
So,
10's a lot.
There are so many things that might just come to me as I'm talking about it. But obviously, it's a matter of what is it that you actually want to farm, A lot of people might say you start with the market. What are people immediately around you looking for? And what is it that you could provide? And then immediately after that, you look at the environment you're in. So now there's a market here. So I need to now figure out how far or how I'm going to position myself from the market. Okay. But now, what if what the market wants, the environment can't provide? So for example, if you realize that, the immediate area is looking for maize meal, for example. Now, in order to get maize meal, you obviously need to plant maize, which is just mealies, right? But if you can't grow the mealies in that area because you have too little rainfall, or you don't have the right kind of soils, or you don't have enough heat units, then it's impossible for you to farm that there anyway, right? And then there's also something we refer to as economies of scale, which means you have to have an X amount of land doing an X amount of maize for you to actually make a profit. Otherwise, you might just run at a risk of only being able to break even or actually running at losses consistently, because the capacity of your business doesn't allow you to be able to make a profit because you're just doing too little, And why is that? Agriculture needs a lot of equipment. It needs a lot of inputs. So you can't afford to have a super link bring in a whole lot of fertilizer only for you to be putting fertilizer down on 5 hectares of land or 5 hectares of maize. You see, you must at least be doing, say, 300 hectares of maize before you can actually think you're going to see a profit.
Really?
Right? Now you can imagine, because a bag of seed for maize is about 3,000 Rand average, right? And you need 3 of them for a hectare. Now that's 3 bags times 300 hectares.
So 9,000 times 300.
That's a lot of money in Rand.
Damn.
Right.
Yes.
So,
That's what I said, 10 million.
Yeah, that makes
pretty
sense
much.
now.
So that's your startup cost.
Holy
pretty
smokes.
much. So do you see how complex it can actually get? Now, obviously, you get different categories in farming. You get your small scale farmers, you get your commercial farmers, and then you get your subsistence farmers. You know what I mean? So subsistence, more about self-sustainability and looking after your neighbors. And then your small scale farmers are, when you start to break into your market, when you establish yourself to supply your immediate market, you're not obviously going to start off as a mega farmer, or you're not going to start off and just become commercial. So I would say you are more on the small scale side. I don't really like to use the term emerging, because a lot of people have this idea that you're an emerging farmer. But I mean, how long are you emerging for before you become a commercial farmer? So let's rather just keep it at small scale, So you're a small scale farmer, you're starting out, you are managing to plant an X amount of hectares, or you're managing to grow an X amount of chickens or cattle to supply your immediate market. And then from that, you hope to grow into becoming a commercial farmer. You also need a lot of people. You need to prove that you will be able to manage an investment as well, you see, because not everyone's going to have 10 million when they start out. So, for example, if you did manage to raise something like 50,000 Rand to buy an X amount of chickens that are going to lay eggs over an X amount of, a certain period, mind you, being fed every single day consistently, right? Then you're going to be able to actually get eggs, and then you supply that, and then you hope that that's going to give you enough returns to actually buy more chickens for the next season, right? And that's how you're trying to grow. But if that can't be the only vision you have for your business, you see, that should just only put you in a position to show that you're able to be consistent. And then you actually go out and you start finding help from people who are willing to invest in your business, so that you can actually just grow to that economy of scale that you need to be at in order to be profitable.
So, what would you say is the most lucrative form of farming? Like there's cattle farmers, there's macadamia nut farmers that's blown up
Apparently
now.
that's big.
That's massive. And I've heard the volumes, they're insane and the money's insane. There's general, veg farmers, fruit farmers, chicken farmers.
So where's the cash cow?
Where's the money? Where's the cash cow?
So again, I'd say that we look at a niche product. So like something that's niche, right? Now, a niche product is obviously something that you're supplying something to the market that they can only pretty much get from you. Or only something that you can do because you're in the perfect position for that. You know what I mean? Farming is a very situational industry. So for example, hence why the Western Cape is well known for their grapes and olives. You know what I mean? Why places like Free State is known for their grains and their sunflowers and the stuff that we look at. When they talk about the GDP, for example, when they talk about commodities that we trade and we export as a country, they're looking at bulk commodities like maize, because maize is like one of the commodities that we use for things like our staple foods, just like maize meal, for example. That kind of stuff, exactly. And then you obviously get like your wheat and stuff and flour and all the rest of it, okay? So there's regions that are best known for what they do, okay? But then you find yourself in a situation where you're like, a typical example is a farm out Highgate Wine Estate in the Midlands where they are doing wine and they're not in Cape Town, which means their product is premium because obviously there's a market for that, specifically the wine that comes from the Midlands, the wine that comes from Abingdon Wine Estate, the wine that comes from Cathedral Peak Wine Estate in Drakensberg, exactly. So your niche product means that you're actually growing whatever it is that you're growing, or you're cultivating whatever it is for a market that's already waiting for your product. You see, that's where the money's at.
So you gotta identify
exactly.
that.
We could. So what I'm trying to get at is, our cash cow could be, I could have blueberries and you can have blueberries, and I'm winning on a smaller farm, but people are willing to pay more here because I'm in Maritzburg, and you're winning because you've got the volume because you're in Cape Town and you supply all of the Woolworths stores anyway. You see what I mean? There's that, all right? And then there's also an aspect of scale and size. I can't start to imagine or explain how companies that have become conglomerates in the industry, names that you already know, that you see, as you're driving on billboards, for example, products like that. There are farms that can produce up to, or that can hold up to 30,000 cattle at one given time, in a feedlot. 30,000. I mean, that's like right around the corner here in Albert Falls. One of the feedlots there, They were AAA beef before, but I see that they've been bought out by an even bigger feedlot, and they're called Quran beef, right? Everything in our industry or in our food systems is a system. So, for example, it's not, when I try to explain to people where their food comes from, I can't just say that the tray of meat that's on in the fridge in the store comes from Andile Ngcobo right next door, right? But the cow could have initially started off on the farm, and then it reached a certain weight, and then I sold it off to a feedlot, which is like a Quran or a AAA beef type of business, where they've bought in 1,000 that day anyway from lots of various different farmers. They put it in a feedlot for 90 days, strictly on feed, consistently, and then they send it off to an abattoir, and then it becomes meat. So the cow might have started off on my farm, but it was a process to get it to the shelf, you see. And it's in each and every one of those aspects of the chain where you could actually find there's more money than just the mainstream primary farming. You see?
Speaking of location, Rooibos, apparently that's only grown in Cape Town.
Yes.
Right? And it's a big exporter.
Yeah.
And you can only find that Red Bush Rooibos in Cape Town in the world.
Yeah.
So they must be coining it.
It's a niche product, and it's because of their situation. They are just fortunate enough to be able to say we are the best at what we do in this particular aspect of the industry.
Yeah, you'll never find it anywhere else.
Exactly. Like Proteas they don't grow randomly on the side of the road in KZN. You know what I mean?
Damn.
So it's things like that. And it's a climate, I think it's a climate related sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
So have you seen significant changes with climate change now in certain crops yielding in different seasons? Have they affected certain crops? Have we lost certain crops? What's that been like? Climate change obviously is a big player in your industry.
Yeah, and funny enough, we have a lot of like buzzwords that sort of fly around that people tend to not even research effectively, as long as they hear that, there are changes happening in the world, and then they sort of feed off of that. But I myself never thought that climate change would affect me like on a daily basis.
Same.
Like, in my own little quiet corner on the farm, you know what I mean? But we've seen significant changes. Frost that goes on for longer than the period last year. So, like, for example, you just get frost in like early June, or rainfall before September. Those things never happened before.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, as it changes, remember, we kind of use one rule book for everything that we do, or we do everything based on routine. We know that winter is supposed to be June to August. We know that spring is supposed to be September. But sometimes you find that now spring type of weather is occurring more in October than it is in September. And then that's obviously pushed me to also do a lot of research. So now I'm starting to realize that you can't also just put global warming and climate change into one sentence and think it's the same thing. It's really not. Like one is kind of like an effect of another. So you've got to address the one issue, the global warming issue, in order to understand the climate change issue. And with that happening, we also need more people in research that are going to now give us new ways to be able to combat these changes. Because now I need someone at a nursery to tell me, this is the best suited variety of cabbage now for spring, because you might experience more rainfall than you did in the last year. You know what I mean? So that it's affecting a lot of businesses, like, because I mean, if I didn't understand climate change, I would go to my nearest nursery to buy seedlings and then consistently come back to say, my crop is failing because you guys are selling me bad quality.
No, it's the weather.
Meanwhile, it's just the weather.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy. The world's evolving so much so. And I think we've also seen it in other trends like veganism, which is crazy now. And I feel like wherever you go, especially in Cape Town, everybody's vegan, everybody's plant-based. Have we seen results of that, or have there been impacts in your industry with regards to that?
I think it will affect the demand of like mainstream food products, right? And also obviously the outlets as well, because obviously we have our I wouldn't want to say informal, but it's like an informal market where basically, we see women, men selling produce off tables from the side of the road type of thing, and then you have your retail stores, and then you have your wholesale stores, and those are the markets you kind of look at when you're producing. I want to supply, so my market share will come from the guys in the informal sector, the more organized agricultural aspect, and the retail sector, and
Checkers.
that kind of thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
But now the problem is, if Checkers was my biggest, if I was supplying Checkers with the most sort of product, the cabbage or whatever the case might be, and less people are eating that, for example, then it's obviously going to create a bit of a problem for the production side of things. And the thing is, you must just remember, it will always touch based on economy of scale. I can't scale down just because my market share is dropping, because that means my costs won't be covered. You see, so I can't afford to have that happen. So as these changes happen, so we're going to have to also start looking at changing what we produce. And that's why I think when I started out, I said my career has changed so much over the last like 8 to 10 years, because, there's been changes that are happening. And even if you can't explain it, sometimes it's as simple as we're looking at our sales for the past year, the past 2 years, and we're trying to figure out, okay, why is this decreasing? Why is this increasing? Why is this becoming popular? And then it's from that, that's what drives the change. Okay, our cash flow is now disturbed, so we need to supplement that somehow. What's happening in the livestock side of things? Then you sort of venture out into that space.
That's crazy, because I was watching the Rogan show the other day, and they were having this discussion with a guy who's quite up there when it comes to agriculture and farming, and he said that veganism isn't as pretty as it seems. And Joe said, let's explain it, and you can help me debunk this as well. And the guy basically spoke about tofu, which is regarded as one of the big parts of their diets, I could say. And he said, people think, I'm eating this and I'm saving the world and I'm saving the environment, but they don't realize the background of it, right? In order for that product to thrive and grow, they've got to clean out the land in which that product grows in. When I say clean out, I don't mean just come with a sweeper and sweep it up, They've got to pull out every single living plant there. They've got to pull out every single living animal there, exterminate those animals from the land. And these are hectares and hectares and hectares of land that are lost. And they used a word called monocrop.
Yeah.
Is that correct? That's one crop.
Basically, yeah.
Basically a single crop that takes up that whole lot of land, because that's how product's purely vegan and regarded as plant-based and, hits all the criteria. And when that happens, it disturbs the whole ecosystem of that entire area.
Yeah.
Because any animals that lived off the trees in that area have obviously lost that habitat. That's all lost. And they're saying that the ripple effect of just creating one product like that is far greater than just serving someone and making them a happy vegan. And that's what lots of vegans are not realizing, the actual impact of producing this product. That's more catastrophic to the ecosystem than normal diet.
Bro, why can't we just go back to the primal days, where the Shaka Zulu days, where you wake up, you go hunt.
I was going to say, even before that, I think,
primitive days.
That's the epiphany I had not so long ago. The hunter-gatherers had it right. Everything kind of like grows naturally. And you've got to find whatever it is that you're looking for.
True.
Not to create a space where it's conducive to suit you.
Do you think people like difference? Like people like feeling different? Rather than maybe is it like I have to be vegan because of my health status?
No, the guys are the majority are going vegan, I think, because they're saying that they don't want to harm the animals. It's a living being that you're killing.
But as I said, they don't realize.
But they're not realizing that part of the ecosystem
of it all.
Yeah,
which is quite bizarre. Like you're saying, I want to save and not kill and harm animals.
Yeah,
but why are you consuming a product that literally exterminates acres and acres worth of animals? You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But
I don't really understand
I always say that one of the industries that I really take my hat off to is it has to be marketing. It's crazy how influence can just change an entire...
20 years ago, as kids, all of us here, okay, let's say 25 years ago, what was gluten-free? Will you say, Mama can't eat this?
No idea.
I can only eat gluten-free. No. Were you eating Albany bread with butter on it 3 times a day and fish fingers as dinner?
The constipation I used to get there.
You know what I mean? And now everybody's gluten-free and my kid's allergic to wheat. Bro, 20, 30 years ago, we were Gucci.
Exactly.
We were fine, eating everything.
Exactly.
Whatever your mom made or
So
your
what is
dad made,
happening?
It's like a handful of people that probably suffered from celiac disease who actually have to get products like that, Now,
but 30 years ago, surely those same people, I'm saying, would have had similar problems, but because these niche markets didn't exist, they were like, bro, have your 2 slices of Sasko and you're fine.
Yeah.
It is what it is, cuz.
Yeah.
True. But do you wanna
Yeah, I just wanna know, take us through your day, man.
Yeah. Like, what's your day? Because farming is an early game, am I right?
I always think, hey,
what's the alarm? What's the alarm?
Waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
One thing. It's also got a lot to do with your personality and the amount of control you have over your business.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been learning so much from so many different people that have walked this journey ahead of me. Yes, farming, I think like any other business really that requires your attention if you want to look after your money. It will require very early days, right? Not every single day, but it will require early days, and it will obviously also probably demand a lot of your time, right? I don't think I've ever experienced any 2 days that are the same. And I think the reason why I came into this industry is because, honestly, if I could find anyone who would pay me to travel, that would pretty much be my career, right? And why travel? Because I enjoy adventure. That's just the kind of person I am.
The outdoors.
Exactly. So, I think from that perspective, the industry does allow me, the liberty to live some sort of adventure. But let me tell you, some days you really just I have no motivation, and let's all give up for the day.
So on the earliest morning, what time is that alarm ringing?
I make it. I had 2 things to do 2 weeks ago, which is deliver some livestock to East London, right?
Yes.
On a trailer in a bakkie, and also have a consultation. And because I'm there for such a short period, I needed to make sure that this fits over 2 days. Okay. Which means I had to be up at 2 a.m, to load at 3 a.m, to drive down to East London to get there at a good time around about 9 or 10, not without its challenges along the way, and then do the offloading, find a place to park off the trailer, drive off another 80 kilometers further past East London to another site, have a look at the facility that's currently for sale that a client of mine is looking to purchase, which is basically an abattoir, right? That's sort of being sold as lock, stock, and barrel. Okay. We did that assessment. I make recommendations to the client, and the client makes an informed decision whether or not it's going to be a viable business case. And then I drive back, pick up a trailer, and then drive back empty for another 8 hours on my way back to Maritzburg.
So that's the consulting slash.
So you're like overlapping here.
Yeah, exactly.
You,
So like got a product that needs to be moved, right?
Yeah.
And then I just happen to have work to do that side as well.
Two birds, one stone.
Exactly. In fact, it could have been 3. If I could find a delivery to come back with
that would be
KZN,
sick.
it would have been the most ideal situation.
So now you basically work with lots of livestock, am I right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So cattle is a very expensive commodity, especially if you're wanting to get married.
The Ngoonies.
Hey?
The Ngoonies.
Or the Ngoonies is the one that are...
It's the
those are
only
the big
currency
boys.
we understand.
Is that the only currency
Yeah,
you
you
understand?
look at your chick, you'll be like, 10 cows.
So how do we break it down then?
The thing is, you don't decide.
How do we break it down now? Like just say Andile has found the right one, right? Now, how do you go in to that sort of, because now you're the cow man. Now you've got cows already.
Well, as Andile, yeah, because
As Andile,
everybody
you've got
else was
cows.
doing EFTs.
Everybody was doing EFTs, but you've got
but
cows.
you've actually got
So
cattle.
you actually have very high profile in the Zulu culture, am I right?
I'm sure the Instagram is going wild, bro.
Because your in-laws now, when your in-laws see you, they're like, okay, what does he do? He's
Farmer.
into livestock
So
farming.
now- so
What does he
now-
farm? Cows.
So
So now,
It's 35 cows. Thank you very much.
35 cows minimum. Minimum.
So
What's the cost of an average bull though?
okay, let's look at it this way. I'll first look at it from the cultural perspective. Right?
Okay.
Those EFTs are happening, I think, because a lot of African people have moved to now a more like city setup. You know, I don't think this was our lifestyle before. In fact, it wasn't our lifestyle before. Even me saying that cattle are the only currency we understand. I mean, that's how we think. That's how we count our numbers. That's how we look at our cash. You know, how many 100 rands? I mean, how many 100 rand notes do you have? Yeah, but it's more like how many cattle would I have if I, with the amount of money that I have, So we now live in a more modern world, in a modern setup, right? But we haven't left our cultural values behind. Okay, so somehow we still carry those things with us. A lot of adjustments have had to be made, acceptable adjustments, I would say, in order for us to be able to take into consideration our values, but also respect the boundaries that we now have to respect now that we've come into a modern world, you see. So, I mean, I personally, I really don't recommend, or I wouldn't recommend the aspect of trading cash for marriage, simply because that's not the concept initially anyway, right? From how it's been explained to me and how I understand it, first of all, a dowry was actually as simple as a gift that the groom's family would give to the wife's family. And it was more so to show that we are not only happy and grateful for now having someone who's going to be a wife in this home, but more so, we're also proving that we are going to be capable of taking care of the person we're now taking from home to at this new establishment, right? So initially, from what I understand, there wasn't even a value attached to it. If I had one, I could take one, fetch my wife, and come home. Some people who felt they could sort of give more would go as far as doing 15. Obviously, if you're marrying into royalty, it's actually you can't marry into royalty if you only have 15 to give. So technically, they wouldn't even set a number, but someone could easily send 50 to 100 to 150 to 300 cattle, right? There actually are
300?
There are instances where up to 300 cattle have been sent for a princess,
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't really a stipulated, but as time started changing, right, there had to be some level of regulation, I suppose, and so it became a story of 11 cattle, 12 if she's never had a child, or if she's a virgin, or whatever the case might be. I don't really know what the categories were that were now set in stone, right? And then again, as we're progressing currently now, we have this new thing of adding to these regulations whereby, okay, now she's educated, she has a degree, and we feel like we spend so much of our time and money investing in our child, and you're just going to come and pick her up and
Episode 1.
Episode 1, I got rocked because I said, like,
If she doesn't have a degree or
if
if she has a BA
if she has a
degree.
BA or something, you can't add that.
No, but the thing is,
can't.
listen. If
That's
she
what I
if she has,
said. and I got dragged for it. So I don't want to mention it, but that's what I said. I said there's certain things that we're not counting. Like you can't come with
He's
that.
not putting that in the criteria.
I'm not putting that.
Let me tell
I'm
you
half a cow. So we're not doing cows here. No, because there has to be levels, bro.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me put it this way. So, I mean, regardless of whether it's a MBCHB or a BA, even if she had a BA and you still want to contribute 17 to 20 cattle,
You can.
that's how you feel about,
That's what Andile is saying.
I'm not saying anything.
That's how you feel about the love of your life.
Yes,
You're going
that's
to
what he's
send
I get you.
20 cattle.
I get you.
You know?
Josh is putting himself in the negotiation.
I just want to know.
They're going to come to him in the car and they're going to be like, hey, bro, they want 15 cattle. And then he's going to go, but did you mention the BA thing? Surely it's 12.
Surely, guys. She did a BA in carpets and wallpaper. I'm not gonna put it up.
What do you mean?
So wait, let me skip this topic now. I don't want to speak about this anymore. This is done. When it comes to cattle, there's different breeds, right?
Yeah.
What is the most expensive one? And is it Wagyu? Is that a type of cow?
That's
What is that?
Asia.
That's a Japanese cow, am I right?
Yeah.
Now they say, like, I've been to some restaurants and they're like, listen, we've got this beautiful cut. It's premium. It's a Wagyu. And you're like, yo, what do you know?
Yeah.
Why that's
I mean,
such a
I may
significant...
know a lot about food, but I'm also not much of a person who looks into this whole culinary thing to
Yeah,
see why
yeah.
premium steaks are premium, right?
Yeah.
But look, I'm sure there are over 50 or maybe even over 100 cattle breeds, right? So you get things like the Ngoonies, your Borans, your Beefmaster, Droughtmaster, Bonsmara, Brangus Angus, Black Angus, Red Angus, Afrikaner, you know, you name it, it's there. You know, you even get your Ankole cattle,
the Phala cattle.
The Afrikaner cow probably has massive calves, bro. It's probably just got like calves. That one eats other cows. That one eats other cows. It brays other cows.
Those are very hardy animals. They're very good. Like
really?
Strong. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So in South Africa, which one is the
best?
So every category or every breed has its premium range.
Okay.
Right. So for example, you might get, as you guys know, the whole Phala story with Ankoles that are going for like 1 million, 2 million, right? You can even get a Jersey cow that's going for 1 million. You can even get a Nguni cow that's going for 1 million. You see, it all comes down to societies within these breeds, right? There's always going to be a competition as to how do we judge the most premium animal in each of the categories.
Okay.
There are 2 Borans that went for about 4 million each, 4.3 million rand each in a sale. You should probably share this video on your podcast of the auction. They just like spotted cattle, the nice big hum, 2 bulls, each went for about 4.3 million.
What are you doing?
So it's not an Angole, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but what are you doing with that?
You see, there's so many levels to this industry, right? There are people like myself who trade cattle to get cash to make a living. There are people like myself again who trade cattle to feed people or to actually get meat, you know?
Yeah.
Then there are people who trade cattle based on genetics. How have we managed to keep the bloodline of the original stock of these animals? And that administration is very, very expensive to have.
Yeah.
Worth 4 million.
Is that the most expensive?
No. I'm sure we'll see more happening. You know,
But now, how do you identify
society.
a cow to be like you get there? I know you like sit around the parade thing.
Yeah.
What are the
What's the criteria?
Right. But I'm sure there's like a certificate that comes with it.
So now this is a whole 3 years, actually maybe even 6-year study on how you get to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So first of all, there is the actual genetics of the animal. So there's a bloodline. You know, I have this female and this male, and I can date these back to 1934. The original parents. That's how, or 1970 or 1960. But we have this female and this male giving us this offspring. That other premium female, other premium male giving us this offspring. These 2 offspring being put together to give us more premium blood. And so we have the genetics going for many years. And because of that history, you're paying for the history. You're paying for, you know, it's like, I mean, Mercedes, you get your Maybach, which is expensive, but you can't compare that to a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but you know, they could be, you know, some might even argue, I actually often argue, why would you buy a Range Rover Sport when you can get a Toyota Land Cruiser, Prado SUV.
yeah.
They both the same price. One's a Toyota.
Yeah.
And the other is a Range Rover. You just consider a Range Rover being more premium, but the exact same price. Same thing with these breeds, is that they're different breeds, right? But in each of their categories, they will always be a premium animal, you know? And then these animals are judged. And the judging course itself is also a study on its own, because you need to actually know what you're looking at. You're right. Okay. So now, how can you tell that that is the bloodline? Fine. We've got the certification to say we have the records. The semen or the sperm from that cow, from that bull, was used on this cow, which has a good, calving percentage, good milk in its udder when it gives birth, ease of giving birth, all of that kind of stuff. Then obviously also the physical features that you can see.
Weight,
the
weight
skin,
is probably
weight
big.
gain, of course. But also not just weight gain. How quickly the offspring can gain weight to become profitable sooner.
Wow.
So, like, for
yes,
example,
that's an advantage.
Which we call that, like, you early maturing or late maturing animals.
So
right?
just to dig into that a little bit more while we're here. Cow is born. Well, a calf. It's called a calf, right?
Right.
Calf's born.
Yeah.
How long does a calf take to become an adult? Like,
Right.
you take 18 years as a human being to become an adult.
Yeah.
10
What
months.
about a cow?
That's my guess.
But for cattle,
Yeah.
about 12, 10 to 12 months.
close.
Yeah,
And then it's a fully grown-
No, not fully grown. Say 2 years, right?
Yeah, it's a
or
teen.
18 months. Yeah, it's like a teen. Yeah, in like 10 to 12 months, and then obviously depending on what you're going to now, are you going to breed the animal, which means it's going to. And again, that's what early maturing and late maturing, the difference between the two, you know,
okay.
and which are one of the categories that hold a lot of weight when it comes to judging animals. Like if a cow can give birth to an animal that will be born at about, I don't know, 50 kgs. I don't know what the average weight is of a calf, but let's just say 50 kgs. And then the calf is now going to be on its mother's milk for a good 6 months, right? And in that 6 months, when you wean it off from the mother, it should be about 120 kgs to 150.
gosh.
You know what I mean? So now you find other animals even having weaned calves at a weight of 180, but that's all a product of genetics. Good genetics.
So
you
it's
see.
the genetics
So
that's making
the milk quality of the
most
mother
meat.
adds to that, but also the bloodline of the animal, the genetics of that animal will also sort of merge, and that's what will give you early maturing animals. And that translates all the way to the commercial aspect. So now, when you have a whole lot of animals, now comes the aspect of business. That's where I come in again. So now when I'm going to buy animals, why am I buying a particular breed? Why am I buying a Bonsmara or a Beefmaster over a Nguni or a Boran? Because I know that the bloodline of the Boran and Beefmaster animal or the Angus is more likely to be early maturing, which means it'll gain weight faster, which means I'll be able to sell it sooner to make money sooner. You know what I mean? But that study, like I say, is like it's predetermined 15 years ago. You know, when the person who first bred these two animals for their maturity,
He's the one who was
actually
like,
did it.
okay, this is working.
That's what you're paying $4 million for.
Wow.
Because it's a lifetime of work. They only get their money at a production sale at the end of it all. Whereas when I buy offspring from there, I can at least get my money back in 6 months.
So they're
or
not
3
paying.
months.
They're not paying the full bar to take this cow home and just look at it while it's roaming free. It's so it can reproduce.
And
not a
because,
pet,
and,
it's
and,
like-
and because of how I'll say how technology has evolved, we don't even actually, when the bull arrives back, when the 4.2 million bull arrives back, the semen is harvested immediately and freezed and kept, so that even if it dies tomorrow, we still have the genetics that we need, and we can just artificially inseminate it into other cattle, and then we still have.
And
the
how do they
bloodline.
harvest the semen?
It's a it's a bit of a strange process.
I've seen it on your story before. There was what was it called? Insemination or something like that.
that's when you
That's
have
once
the
they've
semen.
got the semen.
Oh.
So I want to know how
How
they
they
take the
harvest.
semen out.
How do you have to shake it?
Shake what?
I mean, it can't just be there. Like,
Well,
You have to
Josh, you're not the farmer. I want to know.
you gotta tell us.
How do you harvest this?
Like cow porn or
with
something.
my
What is
very
it?
limited, we pay
He's got to be seeing something. He's got to be seeing something.
So with farming, there are there are a lot of subsidiary services that make up the industry. You know, we have our technicians, animal health technicians. We have vets. We have agronomists when it comes to farming. You know, so there are lots of other industries that make up agriculture and farming. And animal health technicians or vets, basically, they will use like a very light electric current that they actually literally put in the rectum of a bull, right?
Okay.
And then the current kind of like, you know,
Sets the scene.
Sounds like a vibrator.
Sets the scene. Oh, that's
right. Like this is just me like vaguely explaining the process.
well,
Right.
sets the scene for the cow.
Yeah, and then
you're,
basically, like, and then they have someone collecting it in a jar, and then that's about it. Really, then it gets.
Oh, so somebody's
so
got to
they
like.
got a jar.
Yeah, someone's got to collect.
Are you
it.
the guy with the jar? You're like,
I'm the guy making sure that they don't hurt the cow.
But bro, that might be a big currency that there.
Yeah.
Like security needs to
Couldn't
be
you
there.
sell that as well?
No, that's
what I'm saying, yeah.
They sell straws. That's exactly what they do. They
sell
literally
straws.
They sell straws. Yeah.
And how much is like a okay for then a four?
What do you mean they sell
It's
straws? Sorry.
the semen straws.
Semen straws.
So once you've harvested the semen, right, you've actually got to store it in nitrogen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So kids kept like extremely cold. And they keep it in straws. So like it's very meticulous sort of lab work that comes into play. So laboratories come into play now.
Yeah.
And you get your product into like straws. And then the straw holds just enough semen to inseminate an egg. So you don't have too much of it. You know what I mean? In a straw.
But what are the chances of that egg fertilizing?
Let me
Is it
tell
100%
you,
or?
let me tell you something. It's actually artificial insemination has reduced a lot of guesswork. Now you find yourself in a space where you're almost certain that if you get like a 98% conception rate because you know that you've actually put the semen into the,
in.
Whereas if you let a bull run with cattle, with cows, right? A bull can service about 25 females in a season, basically.
So 25 pregnancies.
Yeah.
Yes. That's hectic. And then now with this whole thing, like that 4.3 million rand bull that went for sale, on average, if you could estimate, how much would a straw cost from that?
Well, okay, for
big
that one,
money
I'm
still.
sure I haven't yet come across like figures in terms of comparing what the most expensive straw has gone for.
300K.
But I mean, no. But I mean, if they start at 600 rand a straw for an average, just like average
car.
average bull, right?
Car
Must
from
still be
Maritzburg.
nice. No, listen, we've got Nottingham Road.
We got the big boys.
Just,
we do.
you gotta
That's
be-
the Midlands. Those are big boys.
Those
yeah.
are
Yeah,
so
the big
premium
boys.
stuff, eh?
Yeah.
But you can have that. It can go up to about 2,000 rand a straw, maybe even more than that. Eh?
Wow.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but
like I
if
say, I
it's-
mean, I'm shocked to see a 4.3 million rand bull. So tomorrow I might be shocked to find a 6,000 rand straw.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Would you buy a straw from?
Oh, we
that?
buy straws. We definitely buy straws.
Oh, you buy a
not
lot
from
of
that
straws.
particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could, I might buy
But-
like 5.
Yeah, exactly.
But now, if you were given the opportunity to buy a straw from that sort of a breed of a cow, what cow would you breed it with now, currently in your
So
setup?
the thing is, you must, or not you must.
Can they make mixed race
it can mix-
babies?
Yeah, you can literally you can create any kind of cow you want in the world, right? Obviously, comes highly unrecommended for many reasons, because there are biological aspects to farming and to breeding cattle. For example, you can't use Bonsmara bulls on, say, Dexter cattle because of the size of the animal, and which means it's going to have difficulty giving birth. In fact, it might not even be able to sustain a pregnancy, and if it does, it probably won't be able to give birth naturally, and you really can't afford to do a cesarean section on like more than one cow, really. That's expensive.
Because I was going to say, how does the average Joe know what breed that is versus that breed? If you've got,
Is it easy to
if
identify?
you're foyering there in your backyard,
Yeah, that's the
there,
problem though with our current with the small scale farmers or your homestead farming or homesteading basically. You see, I always say that you can literally turn around a rural area's economic situation by simply changing something as simple as just the bulls that they use in the area. So for example, if I had to go into a rural setup and collect all of the bulls that exist in that particular area and replace that bull with premium bulls, right? The same number of premium bulls. It does not matter how shitty the cows are that they may have in that particular area, but it will take about 2 years for you to start seeing a different, or 3 years.
Different story,
that
though.
difference in the quality of their animals.
Have you ever gone to like a rural setup and been blown away by the livestock that they've had there?
Yes.
Like you're like, how do you
Yes.
guys have a bull this size?
Yes. I'll tell you, there's a guy who's very passionate about livestock. So he's actually a male nurse in an area called Bulwer, right? And he's always been fascinated by, I mean, obviously, so it's like, when you're in a rural setup, you're also surrounded by farms. You don't just drive from a rural area straight into town. You're going to probably go through like a buffer zone and there's going to be farms along the way. So being from that area, he's always been very observant of what all the commercial farmers are doing. So as a passion project, he just one day decided, you know what, actually, I'm going to get a good bonus. I'm going to buy a good bull. The first thing he did when he bought the bull was he started a business where he would allow people to let their cows mate with his bull, so they'd pay to like a rental fee to have the bull in his kraal.
That
and
is
then all the neighbors now have
house.
all of these beautiful cattle, like all around the area that he's in. Then he started investing in his own cows, and now he just has premium Bonsmara animals in such an unlikely setup that when
Really?
you come around, you're like, this. I want to say this is a Bonsmara, but because I'm in a rural area, maybe it's not. And then after a while, you look at the traits, and if you're also quite good at judging cattle, you'll realize that this is actually
like,
This is
my
a real
gosh.
deal.
this is a real deal.
What would be the most expensive price if you give a budget on a cow that he has currently right now?
Right now, I think, okay, for example, none of his heifers, which are cows that have never given birth yet, none of his heifers would go for anything less than 16,000 rand. That's how premium they are. So his bull is probably sitting at about 40,000 rand.
Wow, but what's the feed costing him there?
No, but look, he's grazing. So and it's a good thing that he, with introducing animals into an area like that, it can be difficult to sort of get them to adjust to a harsh environment like that, where you don't have the green pastures, but you have your natural veld grasses, right?
Yeah.
But with animals, if bred right, it's not difficult to get it right. It's not difficult to get your animals to become sort of used to the area that you're from. You can introduce animals into particular areas and then just try and get them to acclimatize to.
Sure. Now, what about the threat of wildlife and big cats with farming? Have you had any or heard of any experiences where farmers like, I've had this experience where I don't know what it was, a big cat or a bobcat.
But also
that's pulled in.
stealing, bro.
That's big as
stock
well.
theft is massive.
That's a whole different part.
Yeah.
Oh,
Completely.
really?
Yeah. But I mean, with wildlife, there are a few issues. For example, see, wildlife, things like, let's not even look at predators. Even if you look at like your herbivores, things like your kudu and nyala and impala in the area, if you have a lot of wildlife surrounding your farm, wildlife carries a lot of disease because you don't really like look after these things. They're wild, you know what I mean? So they've built up their own resistance to things like ticks and that kind of stuff. So the ticks have also kind of like upgraded in life, and now they've become worse. So now we have areas, especially where we're from, that are very high in red water and hot water. And these are issues that cause animals to become sick based on the ticks that would have bitten the cows. So now if you're sharing a boundary with the game reserve, for example, obviously you're going to have a high tick load and a high tick load of very bad ticks, right? Which means you're in an area that can obviously be a high risk to livestock. Livestock will literally just drop like flies. Like they literally just drop.
Sure.
Yeah, from one bite, and then they just don't survive. They become instantly ill. Yeah.
So the wild animals is not the threats; it's these.
It's the
It's the issue, it's the ticks that come with
predators.
and snakes, because that's always
from time to time. We get
boys.
random snake bites. It's
Yeah.
really,
Have you been bitten by a snake?
I've never been bitten by a snake before. No.
Anybody on your farm?
I know of someone who has been bitten by a snake on the farm.
what
with a
snake
black
was it?
mamba.
A black mamba?
Yeah, and we had to sort of get them transported to Notdale Hospital. The drive was about 15 minutes, but by the time it got to the hospital, he couldn't even speak. Like that's how.
And did he?
No, he made it.
He made it?
Yeah, he made it. But he
Hectic.
also had to take resign from work. Basically, he couldn't work after that. He was quite. There were more implications to.
So with the black mamba biting you, doesn't your blood like?
Oh, that's the thing.
clot?
I think and it's also not being well informed, not knowing what to do. And no matter how many times you read about these things, and no matter how much National Geographics you
When
watch,
it happens,
bro,
Different story.
You just
Just a flip. I've got one more question about livestock, man. Do they taste different?
Yeah.
So does the 4 million rand cow taste different to the 16,000 rand cow? Will you ever know if you cut a piece of meat steak?
To be quite honest, no. I think it's more of an income related thing when it comes to the pricing and the animal. Like I said, how soon can you make your income from
Yes,
getting
okay,
an
so
animal?
that's
Like I
what
said,
it's about. All
but,
right.
But age, regardless, does affect the quality of the meat either way. So for example, we may both have average cattle, but your cow is 5 years old and mine is 2 years old. Yours was grass fed and eating out in a field, and mine was being fed using like grain products and feed, right? So I'll have A grade or A like proper grade meat, and you'll probably have seed grade meat.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about the grades. How do those work? Because
Well, I mean, his cow is eating grass and walking more, so it's a whole lot tougher and fitter than my cow that's just standing there and eating and getting fat.
So mine's A grade.
but grass fed
yours
is
C grade.
Mine's C grade.
yours is C grade, as in it's
Because it's
shit.
eating grass.
Yeah, because it's walking a lot. Like it's walking like
So
how many kilometers
it's
a day?
exercising
So
too much.
exercise
Yeah,
and
it's-
fitness and veganism for cows is
It means you're not going to
C-grade.
taste
But you
good.
won't know because you've only been eating C grade.
Yeah. And then B grade now?
Well, I guess it's the categories will obviously, like I say, I mentioned 5 and 2 years old, but then obviously you get like 1 year old cattle and 3 years old. So I'm not quite sure at which age. And or let me put it this way, it's difficult to explain it when you talk about live animals, for example. But once the carcass has been, judged or looked at, you can sort of kind of like grade it, and the effects of the meat will be based on things like the kind of feed they've been eating, the age, the breed as well, right? Like Borans, for example, either way, they don't do so well in a feedlot situation where I'd feed them because their average daily gain or food conversion ratio rather is not conducive to spending money on feeding them because they're going to gain weight the same way whether they feed or eating grass, right? Whereas with Angus and Bonsmara and beef master animals, for example, they will respond faster to feed just because of their DNA, their conformation, the kind of animals that they are. They'll respond better to feed. Therefore, you're prone to get more A-grade type of meat from those kinds of animals than Goonies and Borans and Drought Masters.
So you could be at Oyster Box, and just because you're having a steak at Oyster Box is going to cost you 500, but you don't know if it's A
Wimpy,
grade
same steak at
C
Wimpy.
grade.
Yeah.
What do they mean when they say mature steak?
So it's after it's been slaughtered, right? How long has it been cured? How long has it actually sat before being consumed, right? Because it's after curing rooms and
it doesn't go off because they like salted.
There's very interesting ways. Like I see, that's more the culinary side of things.
Okay,
So
okay,
I've
that's
sold the
food.
cow. Now you get into the food side
right.
of things. I mean, with Wagyu, the only reason why they are popular is because apparently when you guys go to the Oyster Box, right, it matters how much fat is on your steak. I think that's how you even judge from a culinary
Yeah, 'cause they
perspective. That's
got
how you
that-
judge,
Yeah.
So with Wagyus, they're the only type of animals that we know of right now that actually have something called marbling, where they have the fat within the steak
Inside.
and not around the steak.
Yes.
That's why they're popular.
Yes.
I think I read a thing about Wagyu beef that from the time the calf is born, it drinks beer occasionally.
What?
And it gets massaged consistently.
That's a high
Look,
cholesterol
look,
there on
yeah.
that. On that thing.
I think a lot of, so that becomes a niche product, for example, but people will buy from you knowing that information.
Yeah.
But not everyone who farms Wagyu.
Because I
actually
remember
does
I
that.
went to the fire room in Monte Casino and they had it and I asked the guy, yo, explain. And he said these cows, like, they get massaged every single day from a certain age. Like literally
Massaged by who and how?
Yeah.
machinery, bro.
Oh.
Yeah. So like they constantly they tenderize from that time, according to him, and they consume beer like substances.
Yeah, you making you
So I'm
thinking
like,
that's
what type
that's
of a
bull.
cow is this? Are you calling bogus on that, or you think it's real?
Like,
Then do the research.
Actually,
then.
like,
You got to do the research.
no, yeah, do the research.
Wagyu
But I'll
beef.
tell you one thing. Look, if I own Fire Room and that's what I wanted from you, I'm actually able to request something like that for you. And which is why my Wagyu steak is 1,040 Rand per 300 grams. And, maybe yours is like 500 Rand. You know what I mean? Same type of animal. But because I've now made this niche product a little bit more fancier because I do particular things, that's a whole different story. That's a more of a, it's a personal sort of like, not everybody's going to do that with their
Heightens
Wagyu.
it, spices it.
Unbelievably.
So if we went to dinner now, knowing what you know, I'm gonna order a fillet. What are you ordering?
Sirloin.
to be quite honest, so I'm personally ordering a venison steak, but that's completely
What? Kerry said the same thing the other week. She said that venison tastes 10 times better than beef.
Oh yes,
Really?
I agree. I agree fully.
Guys, school me. What is venison?
Venison is wildlife
Buck.
meat, so buck like
Oh, it's
Phala,
buck.
kudu.
Oh, I see.
So you would order like a
Yeah,
venison steak.
sure.
Is it
Definitely.
amazing?
Yeah.
How does it taste? Or like,
Really?
if I've only had steak.
It's quite distinct, like it's a very distinct taste. I would say it's sort of like also quite pungent, I'd say also, right? So you can actually taste that it's wild, right? But it's not tough, it's really not tough if prepared properly, and cured properly before consumed. But it's almost like having biltong that's just not dry. You know what I mean? So it's got a very
And you like, how do you have it? Do you have it medium rare? Do you have it well done?
definitely medium rare or rare. Yeah.
So
venison.
Have you had venison before?
No, I've had venison biltong and
ostrich.
ostrich.
Ostrich fillet.
But try venison steaks. Absolutely amazing.
I need to put that
but just to get back to the different cuts, like the sirloin and the fillet steak, that all comes down to where off of the carcass of the cow it actually comes from and how it was carved out, you know.
Yeah.
Because obviously that'll determine I guess it's more like it's the dining experience that you're going to get from that particular steak. And
That's
I
it.
mean, the taste is going to be the same. It's the same cow.
That is it.
That's it. It's about how excited you are when, you know, my knife is sort of like just snipped it off and yours is kind of like cut through the steak. And you've got
flipping
more
thing
of the
tastes
fat,
the same,
you've got
bro.
more
To me,
fat.
it tastes the same. I
I'm
don't know the
wasting
art
time
of it.
here now.
I don't know the art of it. Like, I just know if
I mean, notice
if the
how
steak has
our tomahawk
That's huge.
tomahawk steak is
Yes,
massive.
yes.
1 kg.
Yes.
Something ridiculous like that. On the bone, you know.
Yeah.
And then you sometimes get a fillet, and then you sometimes get a sirloin cut, and you know, those are T-bone, for example. So the different categories just come because you can only get, I think, 1 or 2 fillets from a cow totally. So like it's because it's cut out that way. It's
That's
more
why
like
it's so expensive.
the art of food more than
Yeah.
anything, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the tomahawk and the T-bone taste the same.
Cheap options.
Flipping hell, guys.
Because you can probably get a lot of
Yeah, but a
T-bones off.
tomahawk.
You can probably get a lot of T-bones off a cow.
Yeah.
Eh?
Oh.
So I
That's
guess
what he was saying.
It's
Like,
just the dining
the fillet
experience.
you get like 2, 3
Yeah.
max, depending on the size that
That's
you
just
order.
but those tomahawks are big.
They could.
Yes, they're
So
big.
a while back, I remember on Twitter, I saw this whole thing of Andile and all his friends getting like dragged about their outfits and the way they dress.
happened
and
there?
They were like, "Why are you guys dressing like Afrikaans guys?" And because
Oh,
Andile, 2 degrees, Andile's
Short
here.
shorts.
It's shorts,
Short
and a
shorts.
little top. You know that one. Where do you buy those from? Because I've never seen them in my life.
They're dope. Those cocky ones.
Where do they sell those things?
don't know.
Sportsman's Warehouse don't even have them.
No, of
Johnson's.
course not, yeah.
Where do you get it? Johnson's.
Well, I mean, Johnson, Workway Depot, Dirt Road, Bush and Pundu has them.
But it's just
Mr.
not
Price
normal.
Sport has
Mr.
them.
Price Sports?
Funny enough, yeah, they came
Rock.
out. Yeah,
they
We should have
should.
all rocked them today
should
for the
have rocked
podcast.
them.
We could have been in them and,
And
we would
then
have
if
looked
you've been in the
uniform.
industry for years, you get endorsements and you get like...
Well, there you
Oh,
go.
so you just pointed yours now endorsement.
John Deere
You
boy.
John
You
Deere.
can't just buy this off the shop.
Wow.
So you're a John Deere boy now.
Yeah, see.
That's the equivalent of a Mercedes Benz.
No,
that's a Ferrari.
That's equivalent of an athlete being sponsored by Nike.
Exactly. So you're like a sponsored
You see,
farmer.
basically.
Really?
Damn, bro.
But I mean, for most of these brands, mind you, it's just, I
Yeah.
can't believe I'll mention them all in one podcast. But yeah,
Yo.
Johnson.
So how does
Dirt
that
Road.
sponsorship work now? Because I know with an athlete, like, cool, we're going to wear Puma soccer boots today.
Okay, let's put
John
it this way.
Deere.
If you go to Dirt Road tomorrow and you give them a buying code like Andile 5, for example, you get discounts on all your clothing because I wear their clothes and I sort of get sponsored to wear the clothing. And the thing is, now, if I may just get into the clothing story,
Go for it.
It's about the durability of the clothing, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it's got nothing to do with the fact that because we saw the Boers wearing them. In fact, we didn't understand why your Afrikaans farmers were wearing them. We
Yeah.
just associated with them because guess what? They are the only people you knew who had farms to begin with. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I have friends who farm in Nike and Adidas. They love it. It's comfortable. Tracksuits are cool. It's easier that way. You know. In fact, I even have a friend. He actually only wears white sneakers. Literally only. He only owns white sneakers and he's not willing to adjust. And so he'll do that and he will work with cattle, carry feed, and that's just his.
That's a
just
man,
what he
man.
does. It's just that we
That's
predominantly
giving me
associate
anxiety.
we associate these cockies with Afrikaans people because they are probably the people who own the most farms, the
Yeah.
most people in farming, right? And so once we realized that the clothing, triple stitch, you're not going to find this on your average clothing, you know what I mean? Durability, these clothes don't conduct or you don't get too much heat sort of on you wearing these clothes because of how they're designed, you know what I mean? So the clothing just happens to be cocky. Look, if it was red, I'd wear it. If it was blue, I'd wear it. If it was, this is what's available.
There were thousands
And
of
I think-
tweets. Bro, and
What were they saying?
And the thing is, it's also about the fact that you've also got to blend in with the environment because when, unlike we're in an office situation. You have colleagues. Our colleagues are birds and snakes and wildlife and everything else that you're trying not to disturb doing what you do. Because at the end of the day, we are in the natural habitat of animals, right? If we are pushing wildlife out of the city, right? Into these rural farming setups, and we also now go to the farms and try and now cultivate and do cropping and to do animals in a space where is wildlife supposed to exist? You know what I mean? We can't just keep pushing these things off into rural, into nature reserves only. You know, the wildlife exists everywhere. So to try not to disrupt the flow of nature and the environment, we've also kind of got to blend in. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In a way. So I think my idea behind why the clothing is as it is because of that aspect as well. So unfortunately, we don't have purple, blue, gray, you know.
But people were making it very racial, and it didn't need
but they
to
did,
be.
of course. But sadly, you know why? Because people don't even know where their food comes from in the first place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So never mind the fact that they don't know where their food comes from. What do you think they know about farming?
Yeah.
Jeez,
You know what I mean?
So is food scarcity something that we need to worry about right now? In South Africa, particularly, or are we fine?
Look, potentially, I would say yes, because of climate change and a lot of people not being able to cope with the aspect of producing profitably. You know what I mean? So no one's going to want to do people favors. It's difficult to charity is a very expensive thought. You know, you would love to, but sometimes it's not viable. You know. And so a lot of people might fall away because they're not making ends meet based on the climatic conditions that are changing consistently, right? The economy, the rise in prices of everything, load shedding, you know, everything that could potentially be going wrong will affect our industry one way or another. You know what I mean? And because of that, if less people farm, so there will be an issue of food scarcity. Can we afford to import all the time? No, we can't. No. You know what I mean? And even if we could, can we afford to buy the products once they're here?
Yeah.
You know?
Because that's a constant chat that you hear about. I mean, having a wife or a partner, all they say is, the price of this has gone up. Like 10 years ago, it was 5 rand for a broccoli. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now it's actually 20
Now it's 29.99.
Like, and it's so normal,
it's
right?
59.99.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, for example.
Yeah.
Like, why are the prices, in simple terms, why are the prices of fruits and veg so high right now?
You know, I always say it's funny because I'll make it a typical example. Back in the day, if you own a store and you want to supply and you call me and you say, I'm looking for broccoli. And I'll be like, okay, I have. And okay, I've run out. Now, I could easily go to a neighbor or I could easily go to call a friend up in Balgowan, Lions River, Moy River, you know what I mean? It is very easy to access like food. Very easy. You know, Camperdown, Easton, wherever, Richmond, you could go anywhere. Now, I've literally got to sit and think hard because I only know 4 people now that would have the product when in 2017, I knew 16 people who had the product. Get my point? Yeah, the 4 guys have now probably gotten bigger, but they also won't be able to sustain a lifetime of a market, if you know what I mean, right?
I'm with you.
So in that aspect, that's where I started seeing the effects. You know, for example, I will literally look at the season and be like, nah, you know what, I'm not taking the risk of planting cabbage and let's just see what happens after winter. Mind you, also because of where we are based, cabbage is big in winter, so a lot of people, when they rest their fields, probably plant cabbage, which means there'll be a high supply and the demand will remain the same. But in summer, best believe, we'll be down to 7 farmers that I can think of off the top of my head that don't have cabbage in the whole of KZN.
Supply and demand,
it's like
costs.
a dry, but it's almost as though it's drying out. Like the amount of farmers that we once had, like you said, 2017, there was a basketful, even from my experiences, there was a basket full of farmers, like a whole lot. And now it's almost as though there's a handful, right?
It's rising costs though, Josh.
Rising costs, but do you think lots of people are like, your farms are a bit of a dangerous game now? Because we've been seeing it constantly now. And it's not only like we're seeing like farm murders and all this. Are people's kids like, I don't want to be involved. I'm going to become a pharmacist.
Let me tell you, I think it's a bit of a weird thing, but that's exactly it. You know, a lot of people are realizing how high risk farming can be. And there's nothing you can do about hail. I mean, if you have 160,000 cabbages in the ground, which is not even a lot for some people, but one hailstorm could wipe that all out and you've been waiting for 3 months to harvest in a week's time. And now you have nothing to harvest. You know what I mean?
Crop insurance?
For some crops, yes. Like your grains more specifically, people plant maize up to 3,000, 6,000 hectares at a time, single farms. So they can't afford to lose that and they'll obviously have crop insurance. Someone who's planting 60,000, 90,000 cabbages, is it viable? Remember, you're trying to produce a cabbage right down to the unit cost, right? So for example, if it's costing you 250 to produce a cabbage, you're just like, whew, okay, I might actually see a profit from this, right? But once your costs go over 3-4 rand because you've added other things like, crop insurance, extra additional transport,
You don't-
the
it's
rise
too
in
much
diesel
now.
prices that happens daily now.
Sure.
You can't afford to run at a profit,
So do you feel scared staying on a farm?
No.
You fine.
You got fiber.
Yeah.
Just by the way.
Yeah, of course.
You got
Wi-
fiber.
we got Wi-Fi.
It's got
There
everything.
we go. But look, no, because I don't want to look at it from a perspective of trying to rope everybody's individual situation.
We're not
into
trying to be
one
too
thing.
political.
Yeah. But really, the motive for anything that goes wrong at a farm will always come from within the farm. Do you know where my farm is? Do you know where my farm is? Do you know where my farm is?
No.
So how would you know where to find me? No one is going to walk off the street
I've known
to
you
find
for
a farm, and then you
years.
don't even know how long they have to walk. When they're on the farm, you don't even know how far my farmhouse is from the gate. So no one who doesn't understand the lay of the land would actually attack anyone. You don't know.
So it's always an
business,
inside
but
job.
Always an inside job. Motive, I would say, one, treatment of workers and staff, right? Secondly, in one such example that I know of, people are very smart. They work with the product every day. They know how many sales you're making per day. They know how many times you've driven off the farm. And if you sold 100,000 cabbages that day, even if you're selling them at 1 rand, they know you have 100,000. And therefore, they know you probably have it stashed in your house and you're probably coming back for it later on. You will retaliate, and obviously it's going to become a mess.
I see.
It's scary, bro. It's so scary. And I feel like being a farmer isn't, I'm saying this in the most respectful way possible from my past experiences as well, and I'm sure yours. Being a farmer isn't respected enough. Do you get what I'm saying? Like how we had that joke about a BA and stuff like that. When you say to someone, like, what do you do? And you say you're a farmer, they're like, okay, you're a farmer. But if you say, oh, I'm a doctor or I'm an engineer or I'm an accountant, they're like, oh, okay. But people don't realize the importance of the farmer. That farmer feeds the engineer. He feeds the patients at the doctor's hospital. He fuels so many things. And my dad always has this really smart saying, right? He said, at least once in a year, you'll need a doctor. At least once, right? At least once or twice in a year, you'll need a plumber, right? At least once or twice in a year, you need a painter. But you need a farmer 3 times every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days.
Because you're eating that stuff.
You're eating at least 3 times a day. And I feel like people don't realize the importance of that and the importance of you.
And it goes back to saying, I wish people would understand that there's a science involved in farming. You have to understand geography. You need to understand the climate. You need to understand the topography. You can't just go and just plant on any slope that's not north facing and think you're going to make something out of that.
Yes.
You've got to understand what it takes to actually grow the stuff. And there's science involved in that, There's also a bit of engineering involved in terms of matching up all your equipment that you're going to use to actually make sure you're not spending too much trying to prepare land. You've got to know the kind of engine capacity to use on a tractor. There are so many other technical aspects of farming.
Things that you have to
study.
study.
To a point where we actually have to bring in engineers from time to time.
Wow.
We need accountants consistently, like everybody, like every other business, right? So there are, and to understand when you need an engineer and when you need an accountant needs you to understand what you're doing, And then, so there is a very, very deep science behind it. And also, a lot of the things you see happening now are the precedence for that is predetermined, like I say, 20 years ago. For example, the cabbage you're planting today, someone in a lab had to make sure that that seed is going to be available. It had to be stored somewhere. We had to make sure that, if I can plant 120,000 cabbages or 200,000 cabbages in my own capacity, imagine 500 other people doing the same thing. There must be enough of that, and that all comes down to engineering. It comes down to laboratory work. It comes down to so many things have to be done before you get the product you see today. And that
people don't realize.
That's the respect that I think is mostly it's not given. It's not due, it's due to the farmer.
But now you've obviously dedicated a lot of your time to gain this knowledge so that you can start consulting. Yeah. And how's that gone?
Yeah, you have to you learn every day. Obviously, it's very hard. It's because it's not a rigid industry. You've got to do a lot of research yourself. You've got to understand where you are.
Is it like a school?
What you're looking for? Well, that's the thing. With agriculture, I always say that agriculture as a umbrella as a whole isn't just the farming. It's not this. It's not it's not coming to a podcast with like dirty cargo pants. You know what I mean? It's also got to do with being a plant pathologist, like 4 or 5 years of study at the university. We needed to have agriculture engineers. Mind you, agriculture engineering can only be done at UKZ in Pietermaritzburg. It's not found in any other campus in South Africa.
There by the airport.
Exactly. Being a vet, you can only study veterinary science and become a doctor in veterinary science in one university in the whole of South Africa. You can't find it anywhere else. But it goes to show how there are very important aspects of the industry. We need people in the lab, who can do the research in terms of things like even something as simple as DNA testing for cattle. We do that. We pay a lot of money for that. It has to be done, because sometimes you find that, for example, we recently had a foot and mouth disease outbreak, right? How else would we be able to determine whether or not, cattle are suffering from this if we can't get bloods done? You know what I mean? So there's an aspect to the industry that requires a lot of subsidiary services. And that's what agriculture as an umbrella is. That's whole lot of different, agriculture economists, for example, people who forecast what they perceive might change in the industry so that we know how to best prepare for the future. What's the point of me planting maize in September now when it's been predetermined that the demand or affordability of maize meal in the next couple of years is just not going to be a thing? Why would I waste money doing that?
So now with the world changing so much, so I don't know if you guys have recently seen Bill Gates with this whole new venture that he's gone into, and it's called basically lab meat. Okay. Have you heard about it?
I think I have.
So it's basically manufacturing of meat in the lab, similar to plant-based. So now it's...
these Americans.
I haven't looked at it completely, and I can't say too much, but do you think something like that in 50 years from now will impact your industry significantly, or do you think people will be like, no?
There will be no more storing of sperm because there will be transgender cows. Full stop.
No more straws.
I've had enough of this now.
I don't identify as a cow. I'm a horse.
Honestly.
I'm a horse.
That is so profound.
They won't be
That's a nice way to put it.
Very profound. Look, I'm going to be very honest. There are times where when I walk into a store and I ask myself, surely, or could it be possible that all of this was really produced organically on some farm somewhere? I mean, there's just so much of the product, so many people to feed. When I see gatherings of people, and I think everybody here actually gets bread every single day. Everybody here.
Everybody.
So like we are in a lifetime, we're able to produce what's the population now? Like 50 million loaves of bread a day.
It's crazy.
Never mind the percentage of people that can't even afford it, right? But I mean, they eat because they're still here, right? But do we really get it all from? Is there someone out there producing enough wheat to make that many loaves daily for the entire duration of this year? You know what I mean? So there are times where I feel like there's quite a lot of there's a whole realm in the industry whereby a lot of the things that can be now artificially produced will be produced artificially. You know what I mean? I feel like realistically speaking, that's how we're meeting a demand. Because I can't imagine that. I mean, I complain about, or rather, there's a farmer out in northern KZN who would always say to us, if he stopped producing sugarcane, even if it's just for 1 year, 1.3 million South Africans can go without sugar that year. So he has to produce sugar. And in turn,
the impact.
Because of that, the government makes sure he's well taken care of. So he drives out the gate and there's a pothole. He's like, I can't drive here. It needs to be fixed. There'll be a truck there in the afternoon.
Wow.
Because he just can't be you can't have problems. You can't afford to have problems.
Yeah.
Wow. Sugar.
Hectic. That was amazing. That was the most insightful stuff I've heard in a long time.
It's crazy. Before we finish, what happened on your head?
Bumped myself.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a big bump, bro.
Really.
Looks like a
Stuff
knife
like that happens all the time. Like that Afrikaans cow. I feel like once you put this attire on, it's like putting an Iron Man outfit on, bro.
Yeah,
once you put this outfit on, you get hit by anything, you get bit by anything, you're more resistant, bro.
Mad respect for farmers.
That's a great industry, and I feel like it gave lots of people insight as well as me, and I hope you as well.
Yeah, for sure. We want to visit your farm.
Please.
Do you have any dogs, bro?
Yes, I do.
Chaka hates dogs.
No, I don't hate dogs.
He's just been bitten 3 times in his life.
Okay.
That's a bit of a 3 times.
A lot. I've been bitten once in my life.
Is it?
Yeah. So how big are they and are they cool with
What's
us?
the best, quickly, Are they pups?
Yeah.
What's the
that's
best
sweet.
farm dog to have on a farm?
I'm
Quickly.
going to be biased, obviously, and say sheepdogs because that's what I have.
That's
Border,
the best.
border collies, and
Yeah.
because they're smart and they also actually are employed.
Border
They're not really-
collies.
they're not pets; they're employed.
They're
Yeah.
employed.
To
They
work on the
work.
farm. Yeah.
And they're so
Border
smart. Like
collies.
they can herd
Oh yeah, they can.
cattle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They can understand instructions and they can.
Phenomenal.
Why don't you farm chickens?
Ooh, no, it's a difficult job because
Pushing
they
an
require a lot of
agenda, yeah.
heat,
No, I'm
a lot of
asking.
light, and they also need like a lot of good management, cleanliness. It's quite a demanding aspect of the industry.
And they've got a high mortality.
Highly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to know.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
The
Sick.
Load Shed podcast. Thank you so much to the King Andile
Dude.
for coming. Your future in-laws need to know there are many cows available. That's all I'm saying. Many cows.
I really hope you get your. I think we need more farmers, so hopefully you can push
Yeah.
that consulting thing,
Yeah.
man. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people there with dreams
Yeah.
of being farmers, but they actually have no clue
Yeah.
what the hell to do.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've got that knowledge, I think that's a
Phenomenal.
good start.
And I feel like anyone who actually listened to this today
Yeah.
will have a better understanding of how to enter this, you know, if it's a career that you want to do.
Yeah.
And if somebody does want to, you can look at Andile's social media. And again, why I started with your social media thing is because of the awareness it's creating. And I feel like it's breaking a lot of barriers and stereotypes
Yeah.
with you doing what you're doing on the platform you're doing it on. A lot of future generations will benefit from seeing what you're doing. So
And to
well
be
done.
clear, you don't need 10 million rand, obviously. Andile will help you out with that stuff.
Yeah,
Andile will help you out with that stuff.
You'll talk about the price points, but geez.
Chuck
But that's
needs to
sick.
pee now.
Yeah, thank you.
To you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm fine. Thanks, man.
Great chat.
Yeah, give me all your attention. One time for the misfits. Through the doors open on the highway. I promise you don't want to miss this. They say the good die young, but this is gonna be a long one.